a scarred drifter with a haunted past. A defiant mail-order bride turned pawn in a brutal frontier trade. Bound by silence, hunted by guilt, and thrown into a town that feeds on spectacle, their collision ignites a reckoning neither one saw coming. Come in now, kick off your boots, pour yourself a cup of strong tea, and settle by the fire. This story's been waiting. It begins not in gunfire or glory, but in the hush before. The kind you only find in the wide, still West. 1800 years earlier, they say the hills whispered of bones buried deep. But this tale, this one starts in Asheville, Wyoming, autumn of 1887. Dust on the wind, a church bell ringing, and a girl with a secret stitched into her shadow. The kind of secret that doesn't stay buried, not in a town built on ash and bone. The sun beat down like the judgment of God. Not a single cloud dared to cross the blistering sky over Dry Gulch, Arizona territory, and the dirt road that cut through the center of town shimmered with heat and broken promises. She sat crooked on the back of a dull gray mule, the animal shifting uneasily beneath her, as if it too was ashamed to be part of the spectacle. Her dress, what was left of it, was sweat-stained, torn, and caked in dust. Her face, flushed and freckled, was half hidden by a tumble of copper hair matted to her cheeks. A battered sign hung around her neck on a piece of twine, the words scrawled in thick, mocking strokes. Mail-order bride, $50. They laughed at her. Men with toothpicks and rifles, men in suspenders and whiskey-stained shirts, men who hadn't seen a real woman in months. They catcalled and chuckled, threw coins at the mule's feet like she was part of some low-rent traveling show. "Look at her," one man barked. "Bet she can't even cook, but for 2 bits. Hell, I'll take my chances." Another leaned in with a leer. "Ain't worth half that, far as I see. She's all bones and dirt." She didn't flinch, didn't cry, not anymore. Inside, her ribs pressed against lungs tight with shame. Her hands, bound at the wrist with a length of rawhide, twitched ever so slightly, fingers curling around nothing. She could feel every eye on her, weighing her, judging her. They didn't see Clara Whitmore, daughter of a schoolteacher, reader of books, believer in second chances. They saw merchandise, spoiled goods, a fool's bargain. At 19, Clara had already buried her father, lost her family farm, and endured 1,000 small humiliations. But none had burned quite like this. 3 weeks ago, she had stepped off the overland stage clutching a letter that promised sanctuary. The man who wrote it, a widower named Daniel McMurtry, had offered marriage, a cabin, and stability in the untamed West. Desperation made her say yes. Hope made her pack her bags. Ignorance blinded her to the truth. Daniel was dead. Pneumonia, they said. 2 weeks before she arrived. His brother Clay had met her at the station drunk and already grinning like he'd won something. He told her the law didn't much care about mail-order arrangements. The way he saw it, she was part of the inheritance. The first night, she slept on the floor. The second, she didn't sleep at all. She tried to run. She got 10 miles on foot before Clay and his men dragged her back. She bit one of them. They beat her for that. Not enough to bruise the face, but enough to remind her who held the leash. Then Clay, never one for subtlety, had the brilliant idea of putting her on display. "Let the town decide what she's worth," he'd said. Now here she was, the mule shifting under her, the heat soaking into her skull, her mouth so dry it felt glued shut. She could smell herself, sour, sunburnt, and stubborn. But she refused to beg. Her eyes stayed forward, focused on the horizon. A shadow moved in the distance. At first it was only a shimmer, a smudge across the heat waves. But it grew. Hooves clacked against hard-packed earth, steady, unhurried. The crowd's noise softened as heads turned toward the incoming rider. He came alone, riding a black gelding that looked as lean and worn as its master. Dust clung to the man's coat, long and sun-faded. A wide-brimmed hat shielded his face, the shadow beneath it deep as a well. On his back, a rifle. On his hip, a Colt. And around him, silence. He dismounted slowly, boots touching earth with a soft thud. No flourish, no hurry, just a quiet inevitability, like the slow turn of a storm. The crowd parted around him, Someone muttered something crude, but it died in the dry air. He walked straight to the mule. Clara met his gaze, or tried to. His face was rough-hewn, sun-browned, with a scar running from his left cheek down toward his jawline like a crack in old leather. His eyes were unreadable, shaded beneath the brim. But he looked at her, not around her, not through her, just at her. "Is this some kind of auction?" he asked, voice low, graveled. Clay stepped forward, puffed up like a rooster. "She's mine. Ain't no law here says I can't sell what belongs to me." The stranger turned his head slightly, like a wolf sniffing the wind. "She don't look like property. She came for my brother. He's dead. That makes her mine." A pause. A coin clinked in the stranger's hand. He flipped it once, caught it. "How much you want?" Clay narrowed his eyes. $50. The coin flicked again, then arced through the air. It landed in the dust, rolling to a stop at Clay's boots. "I'll take her," the man said. "No deal," Clay growled. "This ain't—" The stranger's hand moved. Not fast, not showy, just sure. His fingers brushed the Colt's handle like it was part of his own body. Clay froze. The crowd, sensing blood, stepped back in unison. The silence returned, taut as wire. "You can try to stop me," the man said, voice flat, "but it'll be your last mistake." Clay looked at his men. They looked at the ground. Clara watched, breath shallow, trying not to believe, trying not to hope. Clay spat. "She ain't worth dying over." The stranger turned back to her, unfastened the rope at her wrists, helped her down. Her legs buckled, and he caught her before she hit the ground. She felt the roughness of his coat, the tension in his arm. His hand was warm. Then everything went black. She awoke to motion. The steady rhythm of hooves. Her head rested against his chest, her body wrapped in a blanket. The sun was lower now, sliding behind rocky hills. The wind cooled her burning skin. She stirred. His arm adjusted around her. "You're safe," he said. She wanted to speak, to ask who he was, why he did it, but her throat was raw and her eyes heavy. She let the silence take her again. When she woke next, it was night. A fire crackled softly nearby. She lay under the stars, the blanket pulled tight around her. The stranger sat a few feet away, sharpening a knife. The sound was rhythmic, steady, not threatening, comforting somehow. She sat up slowly. Her head throbbed. He didn't look at her. "Water's in the canteen. You'll want it." She took it, drank too fast, then coughed. He handed her a strip of jerky without a word. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, she found her voice. "Why?" He paused the knife. "I don't like slavers," he said simply. "Don't like crowds much either." She studied him. His face was expressionless, carved from experience. Not handsome, but striking. Something about the way he sat, calm but alert, as if ready to kill or disappear at a moment's notice. "My name's Clara," she offered, voice hoarse. He nodded. "Ash." She waited for more. Nothing came. "You don't talk much." "Only when there's something worth saying." She didn't smile, but her eyes softened a little. The blanket slid from her shoulder. She pulled it tighter. Her skin still burned, her pride even more so. But for the first time in weeks, maybe longer, she didn't feel like prey. Ash stood, tossed another log onto the fire. "We ride at dawn," he said. "Got a long way before we're clear of McMurtry's reach. I don't even know where I'm going. Someplace better than where you've been." She lay back down, staring up at the stars. One blinked, then vanished behind a passing cloud. She didn't know if she believed him, but she wanted to. Morning came hard. The wind was cooler, but the sun wasted no time reclaiming its dominion. Ash had already saddled the horse, his only one, and was lashing his gear tight. Clara limped over, muscles stiff and sore. "You expect me to ride that thing with you? You got a better idea?" She didn't. He offered his hand. She hesitated, then took it. His grip was strong, firm. He pulled her up behind him like she weighed nothing. As they set off, the town of Dry Gulch lay far behind them, shrinking in the haze. Clara glanced back only once. The road ahead was harsh, unfamiliar, but something within her, a fragile, flickering ember, began to stir. Not quite hope, not yet, but something close. The desert didn't forgive, and it sure as hell didn't forget. Clara could feel it in the wind, in the cracked skin of her lips, in the silence that stretched between each hoofbeat. Morning light had spilled over the jagged hills like molten brass, casting long, violent shadows across the sand. Every ridge looked like a threat, every bush a waiting eye. She clung to Ash's coat as he rode, her fingers stiff with cold even though sweat pooled along her back. They hadn't spoken much since leaving Dry Gulch. Ash was a man of few words, and Clara wasn't sure she wanted to break whatever uneasy truce they'd found in their silence. She was alive, not chained, not gagged. That was enough, for now. Around noon, they stopped beside a rock outcropping shaped like a broken tooth. The horse, Ash had called him Rook, snorted and pawed at the dirt as Ash dismounted. Clara slid down awkwardly, legs trembling from the ride. Her whole body felt like it had been jarred loose from itself. Ash untied a canteen from the saddle and handed it to her. She drank, slower this time, grateful for the tepid metallic water. She let it roll down her throat, savoring the dull ache it eased. When she passed it back, Ash didn't speak. He sat on a nearby stone, cleaning his rifle with methodical precision. Clara sat across from him, fingers picking absently at the hem of her dress. It had dried stiff with salt and dirt. She wondered if she still smelled like Mule. "How far are we going?" she asked. Ash didn't look up. "Far enough?" That could mean anything. Then it means exactly what it needs to. She scowled, more tired than Anu. "He dead? You always this talkative?" He glanced at her finally. Just a flick of the eyes, and she thought she saw something close to a smirk. Maybe. Or maybe the heat was getting to her. After a long pause, he spoke again. "McMurtry's not the kind to let go. He'll come. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But he'll come." She shivered, despite the heat. "Then why take me at all? You didn't have to." Ash stood and fed a few crumbs of biscuit to Rook. "Didn't say I was smart, just said I don't like the kind of men who make sport of pain." Clara watched him for a moment. "That it? Just principle?" He didn't answer. He checked the saddle straps, adjusted his rifle, then mounted up. "We move." The second day in the desert taught Clara about patience. The third taught her about fear. They camped that night beneath a shallow overhang carved into the side of a sun-baked ridge. Ash built a small fire, using dry brush and flint. Clara tried to help, clumsily at first. She fetched kindling, arranged stones, even tried cooking the last of the dried beans Ash pulled from his bag. They tasted like chalk, but it beat hunger. After they ate, Ash sat with his back to the fire, facing out into the dark. Clara wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and sat near him. "You think they're close?" Ash nodded once. "Smoke on the ridge earlier, not ours." "You always looking for danger?" He didn't respond. The silence pressed between them like a wall. Clara tucked her legs beneath her. "You ever been married?" Ash's hand stilled on the rifle stock. He didn't look at her. "Yeah," he said after a long breath. She waited. He didn't go on. "Meant something to you?" she asked. "Everything," he said. Then, softer, "That's what makes it worse." Clara didn't press. She watched the firelight flicker across the stone wall, casting dancing shadows that looked like ghosts. "I wanted to be a teacher," she said. Ash glanced at her. "Back in Missouri, before my father died, I had a class of 8, 6 boys, 2 girls. Most of them couldn't spell worth a damn, but they tried. I liked it, made me feel like, I don't know, like I mattered." "You do," he said quietly. She looked at him, surprised. "You don't know me." Ash stared into the dark. You matter to the man who came for you. That's enough. She wanted to ask more, about his wife, about who he'd been before the rifle and the hard eyes, but something in his posture told her the door had already closed. That night, she dreamed of her old schoolhouse, of children's laughter, of clay dust rising in the spring wind, and when she woke, her hands were clenched tight in fists. They moved faster the next day. Ash said nothing, but his eyes scanned the horizon with increasing intensity. Clara noticed the change in his grip, the way his hand hovered near his hip more often, how his mouth thinned when he stared too long into the distance. She learned to ride closer to him, to listen, to watch the way the sun hit the rocks. It helped avoid heat mirages, helped her feel less lost. That afternoon they crested a ridge and saw the smoke. Thin, black, rising in a lazy curl about 5 miles off. Ash cursed under his breath. "Is it them?" "Not settlers," he said. "Not a campfire." She followed his eyes. The smoke rose from behind a narrow canyon. "Clay?" she asked. "Or someone working for him?" Clara's mouth went dry. Her mind flashed to the man who had held her down when she tried to flee, to the laughter in the crowd. Her hands began to shake. Ash didn't comfort her. He didn't offer hollow assurances. He just looked at her, steady and clear. "You scared?" She nodded. "Good. Means you'll move when I tell you. What are we going to do? Set traps, control the ground." "You mean fight?" "I mean win." They moved into the canyon just as the sun dipped behind the cliffs. Ash guided her with sharp, efficient instructions, what to gather, where to place the tripwire, how to bait a trail. He used old tools, broken glass, discarded nails, sharp rock shards, sharpened by years of wear. "You done this before," she said. He grunted, enough times to get real tired of it. They built a decoy fire near a cluster of rocks to draw attention, then hid just above the ledge on a narrow slope. Ash handed her the small repeater rifle. It felt heavy in her hands. "I don't know how to shoot," she whispered. "Now's a good time to learn. What if I freeze? Then don't." They waited in silence, breath shallow, the air thick with heat and tension. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the night. Ash watched it carefully. Then, hooves, low voices, metal on leather. Clara's heart hammered. Her fingers trembled. She pressed them tighter to the rifle. Figures emerged, 4 of them. 2 carried lanterns, the others moved low and quiet. They stepped toward the fire. Ash moved like smoke. 1 second he was beside her, the next he was gone. Clara stayed still, just as he'd told her. The trap triggered, a burst of noise, then screams. Ash fired once, then again. A man fell backward, shot clean through the chest. Another turned toward the slope and was caught by the tripwire, his legs snapping backward with a sickening crack. Gunfire erupted in the canyon. Muzzle flashes lit the walls. Clara ducked, heart in her throat. One of the men scrambled up the slope, saw her, raised his pistol. She didn't think, didn't breathe. She pulled the trigger. The recoil slammed into her shoulder. The man dropped, a hole in his forehead, his eyes still open. She stared at him, stared at her hands, then turned and vomited over the edge. Ash appeared beside her, rifle smoking. "You all right?" She wiped her mouth, nodded, shaky. "You did good. That was a man. I killed a man. He was going to kill you, or worse." "Still," she whispered. It don't get easier. It just gets necessary." Ash stripped the bodies of ammunition and supplies, then dragged them out of the canyon. They camped further down the trail in a dry riverbed lined with mesquite. Ash cleaned his rifle, Clara cleaned her hands. They didn't speak until the fire burned low. "You always run toward bullets?" she asked, voice raw. "I run toward what needs doing." "And before that? Who were you?" Ash paused, staring into the flames. "Union Scout. Lost most of my unit in Tennessee. Came back to find my wife and boy buried behind a church. Fever hit while I was gone, took 'em both. Clara swallowed hard. I'm sorry. So was I. For a long time. They sat in silence for a while. The fire popped, spitting embers. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. Clara reached into her bag, pulling out a small book. Tattered, water-damaged. Ash glanced at it. What's that? Psalms. It was my mother's. You still believe in all that? I don't know, she said. But reading it feels like I'm not alone. Ash nodded slowly. Then it's worth something. She opened the book, read a passage aloud, voice trembling. Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Her voice trailed off. She looked at Ash. He nodded. You keep reading. I'll keep watch. She smiled, faint but real. As the fire died to embers, Clara closed the book and leaned against a nearby rock. Her body ached, her mind reeled, but she felt safe. Ash didn't sleep. He watched the stars, rifle across his lap. In the morning they would move again. But tonight, in a world carved from ash and bone, there was peace. Not hope, not yet. But something close. The trail narrowed into a jagged artery carved through sun-blistered stone. Clara gripped the saddle horn as Rook picked his way along the precarious ledge, hooves clinking softly against shale. Below, the canyon yawned open like a broken jaw, dark and unknowable. She didn't look down. She hadn't looked down for miles. Ash rode ahead, a silhouette, head against the angry sky. His coat flapped in the wind, and the wide brim of his hat cast his face in shadow, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. Each movement was deliberate, careful, not the ease of a man in control, but the caution of someone expecting to die. They hadn't spoken much since the ambush. Something had shifted after Clara pulled the trigger. She had crossed a line. Ash had seen it in her eyes, something that couldn't be undone. Now they were bound, not just by circumstance, but by blood. How much farther? She called out. End of this pass, he said. Then it opens up. Clay's land sits on the other side. Clara frowned. Why would we go toward him? Ash glanced back. Because we finish things. That's how this ends. A hawk circled above, its cry sharp and distant. Clara tightened her grip. Her knuckles were cracked, her skin burned, but she didn't complain. She was past that, past the crying and the begging and the doubting. There was something colder inside her now, quiet, watchful, waiting. They reached the canyon's mouth as the sun dipped behind the bluffs. Before them lay a dry riverbed flanked by gnarled cottonwoods and cliffs that rose like ancient gods. Ash dismounted and scanned the horizon. He'll be camped near the old mining shaft, he said. Has high ground, plenty of cover. Clara followed suit, her legs sore from the ride. And what's our plan? Get close, make it hurt. She blinked. That simple? No, just that honest. They led the horse into a dry alcove, tied him off, and began the slow descent on foot. Ash moved like a ghost, rifle cradled in his arms. Clara followed, clutching the smaller revolver he'd given her. Only 5 rounds left, each one a lifeline. As they neared the mine, the scent of smoke drifted on the air. Greasy, acrid. Men's voices floated down the wind, laughter, low and lazy. The kind of laughter that made Clara's stomach turn. She crouched behind a boulder, peering down into the basin below. 6 men around a fire, horses tethered nearby. A battered wagon stood just off to the side, partially covered in canvas. From her vantage, she couldn't see Clay McMurtry, but she knew he was close. The others wouldn't sit so easy without him nearby. Ash handed her a set of binoculars. She took them, hands trembling. Count them, he said. She did. 6, maybe more inside the mine. Likely. And you want to just charge in? No, I want to cut them off, one at a time. They waited until dusk bled into night. The sky turned violet, the stars blooming slowly above the canyon walls. Ash marked their movements, Who took first watch? Who wandered off to piss behind the rocks? Who leaned too long against a post, rifle slack at his side? Then they moved. Ash led her to a ledge overlooking the camp. Below, a man paced near the wagon. Ash raised his rifle, steadied his breath, and fired. The man dropped without a sound. Clara's heart leapt. Ash was already moving, sliding down the slope, sticking to the shadows. Clara followed, her boots silent against the sand. They crept toward the far edge of camp, where another man sat on an overturned crate, back to them. Ash signaled. Clara raised her revolver. Her fingers hesitated, then pulled. The shot echoed like a drumbeat. The man slumped forward. The camp exploded with shouts. Ash grabbed her wrist. "Run!" They bolted through the brush, ducking behind stones as bullets snapped through the air. Clara hit the ground hard, breath knocked from her chest. Ash returned fire, picking off a man who charged too fast, too loud. From the wagon a voice screamed, "Ash, right? That you son of a bitch!" Clay McMurtry. Clara froze. Her blood went cold. Ash stood slowly, rifle raised. "You got a lot of nerve, Clay." Clay's voice came again, rough and cruel. "Ain't you tired of losing? You lost your family. Now you'll lose her, too." Ash fired. The wagon splintered. Clay ducked out of sight. "You got 10 seconds to come out," Ash shouted, "or I burn your whole damn camp down." Another shot rang out. Ash flinched. Clara turned to see a man on the ridge above them, rifle aimed down. Without thinking, she grabbed Ash's revolver from his belt, aimed high, and squeezed. The man crumpled. Ash looked at her, stunned. She stared back, breath ragged. "You said don't freeze." He nodded once. "Good." Clay's voice cut through the silence. "I ain't dying in no canyon." Then the sound of something heavy, a fuse being lit. Ash's eyes widened. "He's gonna blow the shaft." Clara didn't understand. "Why?" "To bury us with him." Ash grabbed her arm. "Move." They sprinted back up the ridge. Behind them, the mine exploded with a roar that shook the earth. A fireball lit the night sky. Rocks rained down. Horses screamed. A wall of dust surged outward. Clara fell, coughing, choking. Ash pulled her up, dragging her behind cover. When the dust cleared, the camp was gone, engulfed in fire and stone. Ash didn't wait. He ran back down the ridge, rifle drawn. Clara followed, lungs burning. They found Clay beneath the wreckage, one leg crushed, blood spilling from his mouth. He laughed when he saw them. "Too late," he rasped. "You're always too late." Ash stood over him, silent. Clay coughed, grinning through blood. "Go ahead, end it." Ash lowered his rifle. "No." Clay blinked. "What?" Ash stepped back. "You ain't worth the bullet." Clay reached for a hidden knife. Clara shot him. The silence that followed was deafening. Ash turned slowly, looked at her, not with anger, not even surprise, just something that might have been sorrow or relief. Clara lowered the revolver. "He was worth the bullet. Mine." Ash nodded once. They buried the bodies at the edge of the canyon. Ash carved crude markers from broken wood. Clara watched the fur. It died down, the orange glow flickering against the stone walls. She didn't cry. She felt empty, but not hollow. They packed what supplies they could, loaded them onto Rook, and began the long walk out of the canyon. Ash didn't speak. Clara didn't ask him to. When the sun rose, the land seemed quieter, less angry. They walked for hours before they reached the pass. Ash stopped, looking back at the trail behind them. The wind caught the edge of his coat. Clara stepped beside him. "You going to keep running?" she asked. He looked at her, tired but calm. "Maybe." "I'm not," she said. He raised a brow. "I'm going to start over. Somewhere quiet. Teach, maybe." Ash nodded. "You should. You could come." The words hung in the air, soft and uncertain. Ash looked away toward the horizon. I don't know how to be around peace anymore. Clara didn't press. She touched his arm. Light. Fleeting. If you ever figure it out, come find me. He smiled, just barely. They parted at the fork, Ash turning north, Clara east. She didn't look back. Didn't need to. The desert watched her go. The wind carried no whispers, no cries. Just silence. And somewhere, deep inside her, that silence wasn't empty anymore. She was free. Not because someone saved her. Because she chose to be. And that choice would echo louder than any bullet. If this story moved you, if you felt every shot, every breath, every step of Clara's journey, like, comment and subscribe. Stories like this are forged in grit, loss, and courage. Let us know in the comments what you would have done in Clara's boots or Ash's. And don't forget to hit that bell icon. More tales from the edge of history are coming soon.